JRPG Tactician here, and welcome to our installment in the series that we have for Final Fantasy Tactics that goes over basic mechanics and strategies, party composition, and party theory crafting, and even a playthrough guide.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel, RPG Tactician here, and this is part 2 in our Final Fantasy Tactics series where we go over basic mechanics and strategy on how you can be successful playing this game. This video is specifically for party composition. It's going to go into some theory crafting. I'm going to share out some of the fun builds that I've used, some of the fun builds that other people like to use, and most of all, we want to hear back from you guys on your party compositions and what you've done, so make sure you let us know in the comments. If you're brand new to Final Fantasy Tactics, or it's been a while, we do recommend that you go back and watch some of our other earlier videos. That way you get a basic understanding of some of the stuff that's going to be covered here in this video. This video doesn't necessarily focus on what is the best, the meta, the GOAT, but actually the goal here is to give you a high-level overview of party composition options that best fit your playstyle, your experience and skill level with Final Fantasy Tactics. With that being said, this video is on the assumption that you understand the basics, the 5 different abilities, reaction, support, movement, etc. And so this will focus more on the party composition and how to maximize those outcomes and how to have fun by mixing and matching with playstyles. As mentioned in our other videos, there's over 6 million combinations that you can choose between the 5 slots that you have available to assign in terms of your skills. So we won't go through all 6 million, but we'll go over a few. To access jobs, you just need to simply unlock them by meeting the prerequisites, which are having more basic jobs at a certain level. The 2 lowest tiers are Squire and Chemist, and all jobs stem from these 2 jobs. Squire leads to the physical classes, and Chemist essentially leads to the caster or the magic classes. Many classes are actually hybrid and do very cool, unique things that change the playstyle, but what you need to know is typically you'll want to level 2 of your 4 starting characters as Squires / physical and 2 as Chemist / magic users. And again, you can do whatever you want. This is just a basic suggestion on how to be successful. Just to note that this video will cover the content that's found in the original release of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is what the remake of Final Fantasy Tactics Thieves Chronicles is centered around. We'll go through a very quick rundown of all the classes. Squire is your standard starting physical melee job that unlocks most of the physical advanced jobs, and essentially it's pretty useful because it has the supportability of JP up, which to quickly boost your characters much faster, but ultimately none of your characters will really be utilizing this in an endgame process with the exception of Ramza. Ramza has a special Squire class that gives him access to abilities that other characters can't have. He's also able to equip different gear, weapons, armor than people could who otherwise were Squires. Chemist is the other basic starting job that you begin the game with, and I personally think they're actually really good because I prefer to use items when it comes to healing in my party compositions, which will make sense once we go through this video and you kind of see the philosophy and the thinking behind the choices that I make for my party compositions. Also, they can equip guns, which are a phenomenal weapon in this game as they have insane range and they are not blockable or evadable. Chemist also has what I truly believe to be the best reaction ability in the game, Auto Potion, which you'll want to get on all of your characters to be very successful in OP. The next on the list is the Knight. In order to unlock the Knight, you just simply need to get your Squire to level 2. Knight, in my opinion, is not too great. The skills that they have are very useful, especially if you're doing a build that involves being able to steal all the best items because of their ability called Speed Break. It allows you to essentially take the enemy down to 1 speed, allowing your other characters to have multiple turns and attempts to steal equipment that has a low success rate of change. Knight's also pretty decent if you're grinding hard and you're trying to min-max your stats. So in that sense, Knight can be quite useful, but usually I don't utilize Knight anything more than as a required job to get to the more advanced jobs. Although Knights can be very good in the first chapter, if you're choosing to level up jobs through storyline mode rather than farming a lot of battles at the start of the game. Next on the list is Archer, which requires Squire level 2, the same as Knight. Pretty good early game chapter 1 class, ranged attack, doesn't hit too hard, but is quite helpful to be attacking from afar. Has some pretty good skills that you can learn that are applicable, such as Concentrate. Next on the list is Monk. To unlock Monk, you need to get your Knight to job level 3. Monks are very fun. They're hand-to-hand combat experts, and their action abilities are quite useful and fun. They can do ranged attacks. They can even heal and revive and restore MP. So very useful as a main class, or even especially as a subclass, as an option instead of having items as your secondary, to have folks who can throw out revives and heals for your party members in need. Monk also has what I think is the funnest reaction ability, which is known as Hamedo, or First Strike. So essentially, if you have this equipped and an enemy goes to attack you, you'll actually attack them first, and this can be quite brutal. If you are a ninja or you have dual wield going on, you can absolutely just one-shot and destroy people who try to attack you. And now we switch back over to the other side of the job tree on the Chemist side. So first up we have White Mage, which just requires simply Chemist level 2. So this is your standard typical White Mage from Final Fantasy series, where they are your healer. But also, they can learn Holy, which is a pretty powerful offensive spell. I'm not a huge fan of using White Magic in this game because of the charge times, the fact that most of the spells are AoE and enemies can walk into them and catch those heals. Also, Faith affects how hard you can heal. Heals and revives are not 100% guaranteed to land, whereas when you're utilizing items, they actually are. So again, that's just my own personal take. You can be very successful using White Magic. I've done plenty of playthroughs where I've utilized White Magic and it was a lot of fun. And the buffs like Protect and Shell are also really great. Next up we have Black Mage, which, the same as White Mage, only requires your Chemist to be level 2 to unlock. This is an OP class. You could take this class from the beginning and just stick with it and run through it in the total end game. It just is so powerful. It is so good. And early on, it is OP, and it stays that way kind of throughout the game, especially if you're strategizing and maximizing your damage output by pairing gear that enhances a particular element. So essentially, there is gear that can enhance your fire, your ice, or your thunder attacks. And if you are casting those sort of spells with that gear, you're hitting really, really, really hard. Black Magic tends to go out a lot faster than Summoning Magic, which, although summoners, it looks cool, can hit harder. The long cast times make me not a fan of playing that, but they're very fun and I've used them several times. Next on the list we have Time Mage. To unlock Time Mage, you just need to get your Black Mage to level 3. Time Mage, much like Chemist, is a must grind for every character the way I play. So I like every character to have Auto Potion, which is why everyone has to grind Chemist a little bit. And then I like to have Teleport as my movement ability. That's my take on that, and we'll get more into the differences and the arguments that people make for what the best movement support ability is, but I really recommend Teleport, and so Time Mage is great to level up. Also, having multiple characters subbing Time Magic to be able to cast Haste, again, invaluable, a tactic that I utilize in most of my party compositions. Next up, we have Summoner, which to unlock, you just need to get your Time Mage to level 3. Summoners are very fun. Their animations for their espers are fantastic. They have a lot of cool effects that you can do and utilize, so just really good class overall. I am not a huge fan because I like playing with tempo and speed, and their attacks tend to come out a little bit slower. The good news is that you can level up Swiftness from Time Mage, which will cut the cast time in half, which is really helpful if you're playing a summoner. It's also a skill that you're going to need if you're going to play Cloud because of his limit break abilities take so long to cast. Next up we have the Thief class, which just requires Archer level 3. And so Thief is very useful because it has the movement ability of move +2, which is really solid if you end up not going with Teleport. Also, it allows you to steal any sort of item that you can get from an opponent, which could be quite useful, especially if you are looking to obtain some of the best gear. Some of it can only be obtained through stealing. Next up, we have the Mystic and Orator, or as they're known in the original version, the Oracle and the Mediator. Both support jobs that can be useful for debuffs and things like that, and especially if you're trying to max out Brave and Faith, but essentially classes that I tend to not use too much Next up is the Geomancer, which requires Monk level 4. I'm a fan of Geomancers. Most people are not. Basically, their spells don't hit too hard, and they're based upon whatever terrain is available in the current level, but they are guaranteed hit. They're AoE, and they actually have one of the best support abilities, which is attack up. Next class is Dragoon, which requires Thief level 4. One of my favorite classes. Love the ability to just jump, climb the air. They also look really cool. They have that extra range from their pole arm attack. I also mained Dragoon along with Ranger when I played Final Fantasy XI, so maybe a little bit of personal bias and nostalgia here, but a very fun class. Endgame, they tend to not be as great unless you can obtain some of the more powerful weapons through non-traditional means. Next up, we have Samurai, which is considered an advanced job class because it requires Knight level 4, Monk level 5, and Dragoon level 2. Samurai is very fun. Aido is the skill that they use, and essentially you get to release the spirit within the katana to perform a magical attack that can either harm, debuff, do both, or even heal and help your allies. The problem is, upon casting, there's a chance that the katana will break. So it could be quite costly, but I think it's well worth the cost. It's a lot of fun. They have really cool support and reaction abilities as well. One of them, Shiradori, or known as Blade Grasp, allows you to basically catch the blade when it swings at you, so it greatly improves your evasion against physical attacks. Next on the list is another advanced job, Ninja, which requires Archer level 4, Thief level 5, and Geomancer level 2. This class, in my opinion, is the best class in the game. It is just so fun to play. It has a very high speed stat, so it's great for leveling your characters up if you're trying to raise their overall speed. They usually go first in battle. They can do range attacks by throwing objects, which again are used up upon use, so could be quite expensive, but their ability to attack with 2 weapons just makes them hit really, really hard. And so even if you don't end up sticking and maining with Ninja, learning dual wield and then putting that on a different class that's using, say, like Knight Swords is pretty OP, or playing a Ninja and then equipping the Knight support ability that allows you to wear Knight Swords is also another option. But ultimately, I always typically ended up going with Ramza, playing on his special Squire job and having him use dual wield, which allows you to use some of the strongest weapons in the game 2 at a time and just essentially one-shot any enemy, including bosses. Next up, we have the Calculator, or the Arithmetician. Requires White Mage level 5, Black Mage level 5, and this class essentially allows you to cast spells that you've learned and hit anyone from anywhere based upon mathematical numerations, which we'll go into more detail when we get to the party compositions. Next on the list is the Bard job, which requires Summoner level 5, an Orator or Mediator level 5, and can only be used by male characters. Essentially, this is a character that is a support play. It's buffing your characters and kind of helping enhance that party. So can be good for longer battles, but typically, in my opinion, not so great. On the flip side, we have Dancer, which is job level requirement of 5 for Geomancer and Dragoon, but it's usable by only female characters, and it's the opposite of the Bard. It is all debuffs that hit the opponents. The last job on the list is the Mime, which requires Squire level 8, Chemist level 8, Summoner 5, Orator Mediator 5, Geomancer 5, and Dragoon 5. On the surface, Mimes sound really good because they copy the abilities that your other characters use, and essentially they'll use the character of the ability that was used by their party mate in the direction that the Mime is facing, and it'll target the tile the same distance away as the original ability. Sounds awesome, but typically it misses unless you're really strategic about it. It could be cool if you're using a calculator, but then you could just make a second calculator. And Dark Knight and Onion Knight will not be covered here since those were in the PSP remake and will not be in the new remake that's being released in 2025. So let's dive into party compositions. Before we begin, regardless of what composition you go with, I just want to highlight some mechanics and strats that are fairly applicable to all builds and all situations. Note that in the beginning of the game, you only get 4 playable characters, and eventually you'll get 5 in most battles. Some battles force you to have an NPC to join the fight and will restrict you to 4, But in the end game, it is a party of 5 that you get to choose. Most people just stick with those 4 characters from the beginning, which will include Ramza the protagonist and 3 characters of their own choice, and typically most people just adopt some of these special recruitable characters that are pretty OP. I personally like to use Mustadio, the engineer. He's a gun user, you get him pretty early on, and he's not super OP like Sid is, and it makes it a little bit more challenging, but also keep in mind that I've replayed this game more times than I want to publicly admit. So first and foremost, always get JP plus on every character to begin the game. Furthermore, everyone needs to learn Potion. Why? Because these 2 skills are the most important for EXP and JP grinding. Thankfully, all of your characters should be able to learn Potion without having to play a single battle as a Chemist, and you can hit all 200 JP on Squire to get JP boost in the first battle, no problem at all. Also note that you are given default characters randomly, men and women, with again random levels of Brave and Faith and Zodiac signs when you start the game. This can make a huge difference in the long run, and it might be wise to purchase new troops to get the Faith and Brave levels that you want to start with, and you also get to name your characters too if you purchase them. And essentially you just keep hiring new ones until you see the ones with the stats that you like. So just a quick reminder, remember you want high Brave on every character, even if they're not a melee character, so they need it to hit harder, but it's the reaction ability proc that is very important to have a high level of Brave. As mentioned previously in other videos, Faith really affects how hard your magic hits and how hard you get hit by magic, so if you are a spellcaster, you want high Faith. If you are a melee, you want high Brave, low Faith. But again, that's just me because I prefer to use Chemist and items to heal my characters, which are not dependent upon your Faith stat. And we'll leave it at that for this video, as this is supposed to focus on party composition, but if you see the next video in this series, it'll really focus more on how to grind successfully and how to set yourself up for success very early on in the game to make life a lot easier and a lot more fun. The first party we have up is what I call the Nation of Domination. This is quite the heavy hitter, and it's usually my go-to squad for a speed run and just to absolutely breeze through the game. And the best part is it has a lot of flex room for variants, so you can kind of swap things around to better fit your preferred playstyles. This composition will have a ninja subjobbing alchemy for items, or possibly monk for chakra, Ramza playing as a squire with dual wield, and his subjob also kind of the same thing. It could be items from the Chemist, it could be chakra from the monk, and if you want more offensive utility and range, you can even sub ninja so he can throw things. Your other 2 characters are casters. You could really pour it on and just go 2 black mages, sub time magic so they can be the hasters and the ranged nukers, and then your 5th character can be a special character that you pick up, or if you want to grind a 5th character, you can do a Chemist sub with time as well, so you have your healer, your haster, your support character, or just go with the 5th damage dealer and just really pour it on. And if you just want to be really stupid OP, usually taking Sid into your party kind of guarantees that. I just don't prefer to do that because I actually like giving Excalibur to Ramza for the permanent haste. But if you're running 3 characters with sub-time magic, it won't really make that big a difference in longer fights. And with this build, assuming that everyone has teleport, there are some battles with the boss objective where you can end it in the first round. For example, the second time you face the High Priest Zalmor at Zeltenia Castle. For this composition, I typically prefer Mustadio, and actually what I do is I make him sub-time magic for the haste because he has a higher speed than the black mages, so he'll have his turn come up a lot sooner. And then what I'll do is I'll have one of the 2 black mages sub items so we can have someone who can revive and throw out emergency heals when needed. Also Mustadio's engineering abilities that allow him to disable and immobilize from 8 tiles away is absolutely phenomenal, and again, it's just my preferred fun play style. And he gets a lot of attacks, he hits quite often, and I love speed and tempo. Now there is a wide debate on if plus move is better than teleport, because in Final Fantasy Tactics, the teleport movement skill allows a character to warp to any tile on the battlefield, but with a chance of failure. Now the success rate is based on a unit's normal movement range and the total distance of the teleport, while ignoring height differences entirely. The advantages that I see of using teleport over move plus is that you ignore obstacles, so people, trees, whatever's in the way. And again, height is no limit. It's an enhanced way of movement in a smaller area at the risk of getting nothing sometimes, especially if you're being greedy and trying to move too many tiles. That's why some players prefer move plus 3. I personally prefer teleport strongly because of my playstyle. RPGs, at least the ones that I like, always involve dice roll. RNG. It makes things fun and edgy. That's why critical hits are a mechanic in so many games. That chance to do something great is not normal, can give you that dopamine rush that you seek. Lastly, move plus 3 in this version of the game only comes from the bar job class, which takes quite a bit of grinding just to even unlock the class before you can begin grinding the JP to unlock the skill. And plus 2 move comes from the thief job, which is much easier to obtain, but it's pretty much the same as the time mage. Also, in the earlier version of the games, Bard is restricted to the male characters, so if you have ladies in your party, they don't even have that option. Therefore, that is my final argument that why teleport is clearly the superior choice. Also, it just looks really cool and sounds really cool. I do have to say though, after playing the newest version of Final Fantasy Tactics, that teleport is not the same. Height is actually now a factor into the equation of failure, and it costs much more JP. The other must-have ability for this party comp is Auto Potion, since you are playing pretty much all damage dealers unless you opt to have a little bit more flex and have a dedicated healer. And especially if this is your first playthrough, I highly recommend having this on all of your characters. As you become more familiar with the game and mechanics, you can opt in for variability, fun abilities, especially on certain battles where an ability like Hamedo, also known as First Strike, on a melee-heavy battle will be amazing. And remember, the reaction percent of your proc depends on your character's brave level, so make sure you got that high brave. If you check out the next video in this series, it's all about grinding that JP and that XP, especially early on in the game, and so getting Auto Potion and Teleport is a great early game investment, as you'll use these for the rest of the game. Especially for Ramza, Auto Potion is a must in certain fights, like when you're pitted 1v1 against bosses who are quite powerful. So just a quick recap on this party. First character Ramza, as a special Squire class, subbing Ninja or Monk, reaction abilities typically Auto Potion or First Strike, and utilizing Dual Wield as the support ability with Teleport. Second character Ninja, typically sub Chemist or Monk, with reaction ability the same as Ramza, Auto Potion or First Strike. Support ability will be Attack Up, which you learn from Geomancer, and Teleport. Your third character typically will be your Black Mage sub Time Mage, reaction ability Auto Potion, support ability will be Magic Attack Up, and movement ability will be Teleport. I typically run 2 of these, and I have each mage focused on a different element to kind of exploit enemy weaknesses. And honestly, I usually use the elemental rods, the ice, fire, thunder rods for most of the game, that even though they don't have the same physical and magical attack up as some of the later game items, I find that the boost of the element still outdamages the other weapons that you have available to utilize in the game. If you do end up running a character for support and heals, I strongly recommend Chemist subbing Time Mage, with his reaction ability as Auto Potion and the support ability as Shorten Cast. And if you want some variants, you can always, instead of having 2 Black Mages, have 1 Black Mage and have the other one be a Summoner to change up the playstyle and have a little bit more fun. For the 5th, I typically take Mustadio the Engineer. He's a special character you get fairly early on, and I'll sub him either with Chemist or Time Mage depending on how many hasters I have in the party. While most of the game, Ramza will be in the Ninja job, as that helps with his stats when he's leveling up to gain more speed, and having a second Ninja as well, both with Teleport. Typically they will always move first in the battle, and they'll be able to quickly open up on enemies with massive burst damage. And once you're able to obtain the Excalibur sword weapon, you have perma haste, then you can switch Ramza back over to a special Squire class, have him equip that sword for heavy hitting power and perma haste. By having Auto Potion on both of these characters, typically you can dive right into danger and be relatively safe. If I can't reach my opponents upon my first move, what I like to do on larger maps is just kind of wait till my entire party is hasted, just kind of sit there, let the enemy edge closer to you while you go ahead and buff your party. If it didn't already come clear already, haste absolutely owns very hard in this game. The ability to receive 2 turns before an enemy can go once gives you a massive advantage. And again, with this composition, you don't need much healing assuming you're running auto potion on all 5 characters. And again, if you're going to use a healer, I would say go with the Chemist because items can be thrown at a greater range and the healing is consistent every time. However, do note there is no AoE healing with items if you're a Chemist, and if you don't have a clear line of sight, you actually can't heal with the Chemist. So a White Mage or Summoner can AoE heal. However, the spells have a chance to miss and also heal enemy players. And as mentioned in a prior video and earlier, your face stat affects how hard magic affects you, both offensively and for healing purposes. Therefore, a character with a low faith level will not receive as much HP for your cure spell as a character with a higher one. Lastly, I prefer Chemist because towards the later part of the game, your heavy armor characters are able to wear armor that reflects all magic. This would include beneficial spells coming from your own healers. Now, items like potions do cost skill, but with all the grinding you'll be doing for XP and JP, I promise it will not break your bank at all. One last caveat to point out, haste is amazing, but be aware that when a character dies hasted, it continues to be in effect, thus making them hit permadeath quicker. If you're looking to go for a more traditional cookie cutter Final Fantasy D&D party composition, this one's for you. Typically you'll have a melee tank, a melee DPS, a ranged physical DPS, a ranged magic DPS, and a healer. Tanks can be the Dragoon, Samurai, Knight, or even Ramza as a special Squire job. And even though it's a base job along with Chemist, his version with unique skills allows him to equip all the tank gear, plus he has more mobility and speed than a typical Knight. Next up is your melee DPS, or as we used to call it back in the day, DD for damage dealer. Ninja is the primary choice for your second melee. If Ramza is playing tank as a Samurai, Squire, or Knight. However, I would say since Dragoon uses the jump ability a lot and puts him out of battle, you might want to have 2 tanks if you have a Dragoon in your party, but not necessary. Just go with your preferred playstyle. Dragoon, Samurai, and Geomancer are very fun in my opinion and make a solid choice. Knight and Thief are not such great choices for your second melee character, but their abilities are quite useful as mentioned earlier in previous videos, that if you want to steal enemy weapons, the speed break ability from the Knight is fantastic, along with learning the steal item abilities from the Thief job allows you to get really cool gear. Also, I will say that the Knight abilities of being able to break equipment and also the Thief abilities to steal aren't just for obtaining items, but they're actually really good because it reduces enemy units' hit points permanently. Could be really good for fights where the healers are hard to get to. And I would just say that actually every class can be pretty good if used situationally and intentionally. Ninja is just recommended because it can one-shot a lot of enemies and quickly turn the tide of battles in your favor. Staying along with the traditional D&D cookie cutter party, if you want a ranged physical damage dealer, I strongly recommend using Mustadio, as he can use guns and his special engineer abilities give you some utility as well, and you can sub him with time magic so he can be a great haster, which is perfect role for him since he tends to stay in the back ranks of the map. For your magic damage dealer, Black Mage is always the top choice. You get access to this job early in the game. The spells tend to come out much quicker and they hit pretty hard, especially when you're exposing elemental weaknesses. Summoner can be really good as well. It'll just take a little bit more time to grind the abilities, and the charging times can sometimes be problematic when you're in certain situations. However, as mentioned before, the animation of the summons is just really cool, and if you're a Final Fantasy nerd, they're kind of worth utilizing and playing. And you can totally just forego the ranged physical damage dealer and just have 2 casters in this composition as well. And then for your healer, you can go a few routes. I recommend White Mage, Subjob Chemist, or the other way around. Or you can sub Time Magic on this healer, depending on how many other characters you have subbed for Time Magic to get those hastes out. Support abilities for boost defense and boost arcane defense are both nice to have on your healers, as you can equip them situationally for each battle, for whichever is going to be more helpful in that current situation. If you want to play a more versatile, fun, kind of unconventional healer, there are some other options. Summoner does have a heal spell, and monks have an ability that can heal and also replenish MP. They can also revive. The problem is the range is a little bit limited on monk abilities, but hey, White Mage Monk, not a bad idea. This could totally work, especially if you have Time Magic subbed on your 2 ranged characters and want the healer to focus more on utility. White Mage has great utility because of the Protect and Shell, and can even learn Holy, which is a very powerful single target spell. If you like buffing everyone, having a White Mage as the main or sub job would be great for you. I tend to go compositions that just annihilate the enemies in as few rounds as possible, so typically I prefer to use a Chemist as a healer, and you can even make Samurai as a healer. As I mentioned earlier, there is a ton of customizability in this amazing game. Here are some of the other more unconventional builds that I've done for fun that you might want to try if you've already played through this game a few times. The first one up we have is the AoE machine. In this party composition, typically Ramza will be main job Samurai, sub job Monk, and he can either utilize dual wield or attack power up as his support ability. Samurais draw upon the spirit of the katana and unleash AoE damage that can cause status ailments as well, and they can also heal. But remember, this class can get expensive because each time you cast a spell, it has a chance to destroy the katana. The Monk subclass also has ranged AoE offensive magic, plus heal, MP restore, and revive. The second character typically will be my Geomancer / time magic. So Geomancers are just cool, and again, a lot of people don't like them, I do. They can use axes, which have a huge RNG on damage, so it makes it fun but also frustrating. And their magic does not hit very hard, but it does cost 0 mana and it's guaranteed to land. This actually complements quite well with a Black Mage to finish off foes or to set foes up, so the Black Mage can then finish them with their spells. Then your third character will want to be your AoE magic nuker, so again, probably going Black Mage is the right choice, but you can totally utilize Summoner as well. For your fourth, depending on your playstyle, you can just do another Black Mage, another Summoner, or have 1 and 1, and have one of them sub White Mage or items to go ahead and give you a little bit more healing and utility. But again, it's up to your playstyle. You can even run Bard with sub job Chemist. You can run Chemist White Mage, Time Mage / Chemist, Time Mage / White Mage. The options are yours. And I would say for your fifth, for this AoE build, I would take Agrius and just swap to Sid when you get him, or if you don't want to grind another character and you put a lot of time into Agrius, just give her the Excalibur when you get Sid. It's also a good idea because since she is female, she'll be able to use some certain special gender items that'll actually make her stronger than Sid in the long run. Even though she won't have the same abilities that he can use, it pretty much won't make that big of a difference with this powerful AoE party. This next party composition is quite unorthodox, and I personally enjoy it, but you might not like it as much. I call it CC plus C, which stands for Crowd Control plus Cloud. And this build does have some endgame hidden characters, so it's kind of some work to get to, but no worries. Until you get Beowulf in the end, you can utilize a Mystic or a Time Mage to kind of fill in for those disables. So to get this party composition, I'll just use my standard Nation of Domination, 2 Ninja, 2 Caster, plus Ramza Mustadio build to kind of get through with minimal grinding, and then swap out to those characters that I want in the end. And that way it keeps the grind time down to a minimal. So in the end, this is how this party looks. You'll have Ramza. I'll usually run him as a Samurai, or a Dragoon, or a Ninja, since I'm going to give the Excalibur to Beowulf for the perma-haste, since this party build evolves around him. You can also sub Monk or items and make him your healer revive character as well. You'll definitely be taking Beowulf. He is your Knight Templar, and essentially this class is just so cool because he's pretty much a Dark Knight, a Holy Swordsman, so he has instant cast by utilizing his special abilities through his sword, except instead of doing massive AoE damage, all of his abilities actually just mirror all the crowd control, disabling, status ailment, debuff spells in the entire game. And again, they're all instant cast. So pretty much he is a mystic, but he's able to just have more range and just use these spells instantly. And with him having Excalibur equipped, he's permanently haste. My third character will be Mustadio, the engineer, and I'll sub him with time magic. And essentially, since his abilities evolve around disabling and immobilizing opponents, I just kind of do that along with Beowulf's disabling abilities, and pretty much the enemy is just stalled. They can't attack, they can't take action, they can't do anything, and I just haste everybody up. For your fourth, you can have a healer if you want, or you can just have another character that just is even more status element, crowd control, disabling sort of spells. It's up to you. And then your fifth character is going to be Cloud, and that's why this build is great for Cloud, because His limit break abilities are so cool. They're super badass, but they do have a significantly long, annoying, long charging time. Did I say long? Yes. Very long charging time. So that's why this build complements his playstyle so great, because you can slow, paralyze, and disable all of your opponents and allow Cloud to be the star and just completely obliterate enemies with his really cool skills. The two main characters that you need to focus on are Beowulf and Cloud for this build. So for Beowulf, he has his main job. Sub-job can be anything that's supportive. I typically utilize parry, defense boost, or magic arcane boost, and move +2 or teleport. Equip him with Excalibur, give him the Aegis Shield for the 50% magic evasion, Crystal Helm, Mirror Mill to reflect all spells, and an accessory for a cloak for more evasion, or status nullification like a Nukai armband depending on the fight. For Cloud, typically his sub ability will be Samurai for Aedo in case you want to cast something that doesn't take 12 rounds. Support ability definitely has to be Swiftness, so his limit breaks go off quicker. You'll want to find his Materia Blade, which is a hidden item used through treasure hunting, and I strongly recommend giving him a Lambent Hat, which, although there are better options for more HP, he definitely needs that speed. And then for his accessory, typically a Mage Power Glove is good, since his limit break attacks are based off his magic attack ability. The next party composition is Bestial Rage or Animal Farm. So basically, once you have animals in your party, they start laying eggs, and an army of red chocobos and dragons with Reese can be a fun build. Essentially, they can use these skills unlimited. They have tons of range, lots of AoE, and they have lots of hit points. They're just really tough. And again, there's no grinding involved. They just kind of literally appear in your ranks, in your party, and you kind of just plug them in. This next composition I call Nerd Power. It is not my favorite party composition, but lots of people are huge fans of this one. So essentially, your party pretty much are a bunch of calculators. And again, this class is quite cool because they can cast any spell they've already learned. It'll hit whichever unit has the multiple and the stat that they choose. And there's 0 mana cost to all the spells. It's a really fun build if you're into math, as it might take a minute or 2 or 3 to figure out the perfect way to drop flare from the enemy opponents on the map. And for me, it's funny, well, at least for me, it's funny when you accidentally kill one of your own by mistake, or sometimes you're willing to make that sacrifice as you have 3 turns to revive or end the battle. It's a fun composition for sure. The major setback is how slow they are, but that's nothing that you can't fix by actually running them as a black mage and subbing arithmetic. So essentially, you'll spend most of the battle moving the cursor around from each enemy unit, analyzing every single stat and variable that can hit. So it's a very different way of playing the game, but some people find it very enjoyable. Spoiler alert, if you just want to be insanely OP, just get Holy on every calculator, equip every party member with a Chameleon Robe, and you don't need to worry, as Chameleon Robe absorbs any Holy damage, so you'll be healing your party and damaging any enemies. Another fun build is one I call Young Gun. So essentially, you utilize all Chemists, Mediators, and Mustadio. You give everyone a gun, sub high magic on most of them, and just rock and roll. The last composition I will talk about is the one I call Thieves Guild. So essentially, you have all Thieves, and because of the charm ability, you can turn enemy units into friendly units. But remember, since you can only charm the opposite gender, you'll typically want to have 2 male and 2 female Thieves in your party. So if you're running a full Thief party, you'll pretty much be sealing down everyone's gear and then finishing them off once they have low HP. Having a few Thieves sub Chem or Monk would be smart, and even have one dual wield and throw would be more helpful for damage and range. Or you can just use a normal composition and sub Thief on everyone and steal away. And I'll stop there and just say you can play any composition and win most battles, especially when characters have auto potion and high brave. So I'll just say have fun, experiment, and let me know your favorite party comps in the comments so I can shout them out in another video, and on our TikTok and IG and Shorts. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Be sure to check out the next video in this series that goes over how to grind EXP and JP efficiently and get a good start on your next Final Fantasy Tactics experience. Until next time, fare thee well.